Good, good. Looks like we're just about a minute away from getting underway, so. That is messing with my mind because that text on this screen is orange. It looks awful black on that. It'd be interesting to see how it turns out in the rest of the slides. All right, well, it looks like it's time to get started. So, hello everybody. Is everybody awake? It's Saturday morning. For me to be coherent at 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning is quite an accomplishment. So, you know, if I start to doze off, somebody throw something at me. My name's Tim Yao. I own a company called Yaozio. It is an SEO company out of Detroit. Basically, just to give you a little bit of background, and there's a few little ways that you can connect with me there. Basically, I started Yaozio just under 2 years ago to basically do search engine optimization and not much else. I felt like, particularly in the Detroit area, there was a lot of web development firms that were offering SEO as one of their many services, and nothing wrong with that if they can do it well. But I found that a lot of them weren't doing it well. A lot of them were coming to me after I started Yaozio. They're like, we need to have somebody that knows this stuff now that we've actually sold it. So that's basically the concept. I didn't want to be a one-stop shop, not looking to be a web development firm, not looking to be a social media marketing firm, just focus on SEO. And obviously, since I've been doing this basically since 2005, Google Analytics has been a big part of my life. So that's why I'm here. I enjoy analytics, Google Analytics. I enjoy talking about Google Analytics. People have a lot of questions about Google Analytics, and I find that when I did this session in Detroit in 2012, the last WordCamp that occurred in Detroit, it was a popular subject. There were a lot of people that wanted to know more about how to get the data that matters out of Google Analytics. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm not going to try to cover all of the different aspects that are available in Google Analytics. Way too much to cover in this short amount of time. What I really want to focus on, I'm not even going to focus on subject matter revolving around traffic sources, because I feel like I looked at the schedule. There's a lot of people talking about SEO and talking about getting traffic and things like that. Rather than inundating you with that part, I'm going to focus on things that you can pull from Google Analytics that help you analyze how your site is performing, and taking a look at different metrics about the behavior of a visitor once they've arrived on your site, not so much how you gain those. Obviously, a lot of people, when they go into Google Analytics, the first thing they want to do is go to traffic source. They want to see where their traffic's coming from. They want to see if Google's doing them any good and things like that. So that's a natural place to go, but at the same time, I felt like today would be a good opportunity to focus our attention, to shift our focus to the things that can really just help the website perform better. Looking at Google Analytics, there's details that you can pull from it that give you hints of what's going wrong on your site. Maybe you've got a newsletter that you want people to sign up for, and people are just not doing that. Some of the data from Google Analytics can kind of help reveal some of these things. And help you, kind of get you thinking in terms of, is the newsletter sign up visible enough? Is it prominently placed enough? And so some of these kind of things are things that we're going to talk about today in regards to Google Analytics. But before we do, first of all, I want to do a quick survey, and just to see where everybody considers their skill level at. And also, we're going to talk about a couple basic ways to install WordPress, install Google Analytics into your WordPress website. So with that being said, I kind of already just touched on this. Google Analytics installation, we're going to talk about the manual way of doing it, where you would actually take it and put it into your theme header.php file. and doing it using plugins. For those that don't feel comfortable with copy and pasting code into code, it might make sense for you to just use a plugin, and so we'll talk about some options there. And then we're going to talk about, like I said, we're going to talk about the performance data, not so much the traffic source data. Talk about things like bounce rate, landing pages, exit pages, and mobile use. And then, assuming that we have enough time, we'll delve into goals, advanced segments, and annotations, some of the things that really make Google Analytics tick. One thing I love about Google Analytics, before we get too far into this, is that as many people want to badmouth Google and talk about how evil they are and how they're digging for people's private information and so on and so forth, when you look at Google Analytics and what they are offering for free and the data that they make available to us, there's a lot of stuff there, and I never have to pay a dime for it. There's a lot of programs out there that charge thousands of dollars to get traffic data and information, and Google Analytics has it here for free. Not to say that that those that are paid for don't offer some some kind of additional data that might be useful, because I've never delved into those as much. But I look at Google Analytics, I'm like, it's got what I need. So why would I need to go much further? So having said that, I'm going to point out real quick, when we're going through the slides, there's a lot of screenshots, okay? I tried to simplify it by giving you a dark border for the WordPress ones and an orange border for the screenshots that came from Google Analytics, so that we're taking this from Google Analytics, throwing it into this in WordPress, so that'll help you. So you look for the dark border or the orange border to determine where the screenshot is coming from. Now, I just want to show of hands when the scenario that I spell out kind of defines you. You feel like it defines you. So let's talk about the true beginner. You've never created an analytics account. You've never activated analytics on a page, and you have no experience with the analytics dashboard. Nothing wrong with it. We've all been there. How many would say that's me? Good portion of you. Okay. All right. Good. Didn't want to have a room full of experts and have to try to step up my game. Okay, how many would call yourself nearly a beginner? You visited an analytics dashboard, or you watched over somebody's shoulder while they were exploring the dashboard, and maybe you've clicked around. But that's about as far as you've gone with it. So I see about 3 hands there. Number 3, you know your way around. Perhaps you've set up an account. Someone else may have activated it on the pages. You have a thorough knowledge of the left column where you have most of your options, and you could show somebody how to find search data. Most of the room, okay. And we'll call this next one almost an expert. You've set it up, you've activated it on the pages, you can deliver about any data that someone asks of you. You've created a goal or an event. All right. And the last one, true expert. Been doing analytics for a long time. You really doubt that I could show you something that you don't already know. Anybody? It's okay. All right. If you get up and leave, I won't be offended. So we do have it one hand that said true expert in Google Analytics. All right. Enough about that. Let's talk about putting analytics into WordPress. There's 2 basic options. Like I said, you can take the code snippet that Google gives you and put it into your theme files. Basically, you have 2 options there. You can put it into the footer.php or the header.php. Back in the old days of SEO, everybody was always, we had everybody believing that Google's spider would get tired if it had to go through a lot of code between the top of the document and the first line of text. So we always told people to keep as much code out of the header as possible, move it to the footer. Obviously, it's not bothering Google all that much, because now they've made it much more logical to put it in the header.php, because if you want to use Google Analytics to verify your website in Google Webmaster Tools, you have to have it in the header. So Otherwise, you have to use one of their other verification processes. So, so that's why I say no big deal. Put it in the header. I don't see much reason in putting it in the footer these days. And we'll talk about adding analytics using a plugin. Now, this slide, I've intentionally left it in here because this is an old slide that I used in 2012, and a lot has changed with Google Analytics since then. So I listed out 5 different plugins that I was familiar with and was comparing and so on and so forth. But like I said, a lot has changed with Google Analytics since then, and so we can eliminate 4 of the 5, and this is why. Google Analytics rolled out a thing not too long ago that was called Universal Analytics. So you've got the choice of, at this point, you still have the choice of traditional analytics and universal analytics. And so a lot of these 4 plugins that you see the strike through haven't changed to make it possible to use the universal analytics. So that's why I've eliminated 4 of the 5. It's fine because I like Google Analyticator. It's a good plugin, very simple to use. So the fact that it's the only one left, it's a good deal. And they just recently made the update so that it supports universal analytics. And you say, what the heck's the difference? Why would I need universal analytics as opposed to traditional analytics? Google rolled out this change. The snippet looks completely different. The snippet of code that goes into the site. And basically what the explanation that they give for why they did this was because so many people are using non-traditional devices. It used to be that everybody was accessing it from a laptop or a mobile device. Nowadays you can access web pages sometimes from smart TVs, and you can access them using your Xbox and things like that. So this tracking code was designed to basically help track on cross-platform like that. So the universal code is there for that reason, and it won't be long where the universal code, it's believed that it could roll out at any time where Google says, okay, the other code is no longer, the traditional is no longer available. We're forcing everybody to the universal. So that's why I say, make sure you're using one that can do both. And Google Analyticator has it set up so that you can use traditional or you can use the universal. Now, enough about that. I wanted to mention 2 other plugins. It's not like I'm here to promote Google Analyticator as a plugin. So I'll make mention of these even though I haven't really done anything with these, but these also look like plugins that support universal. In the case of the second one, it only supports universal. It does not support the traditional. So both of these are options as well for installing the analytics. It's when you sign up for your account in Google Analytics, and I apologize for anybody that has not done that. I didn't delve into analytics on how to go in and set up an account. For those that don't know, you can just basically use any login that you're accessing other Google products. You would be able to use that email address and password to access Google Analytics. And when you do, there's a link that goes to the admin area, and from there you can set up a new account. But yes, if you're putting it in there manually, once you're done signing up for the account and it gives you the snippet of code, it's going to give you the snippet that works for whichever option you chose. So if you chose traditional, you're going to see the old style code, which looks just like this. If you chose the universal, it's going to look considerably different. I think it's a bit shorter. So here on this screenshot, you can see I went to Appearance, Editor, clicked header.php for the theme that I'm using, and I put a gap here to show you that you want to put it just above the closing head tag. That's usually recommended. So you take the code, paste it into there. As soon as you hit save, you should be up and running. One thing I'd recommend is once you have that and you believe it's up and running, good thing to do is open up a new browser tab, go to your website, and while you're on the website, go to real time in Google Analytics, and you'll see that in left hand on some of the screenshots to come. Go to real time overview, and you can watch yourself visit the site. So I don't know if has anybody been used real time, the real time overview. Pretty cool stuff. I don't know why I'm telling this story, but I actually, when I launched a blog for my daughter, she went and announced it on Facebook. I went and announced it on Facebook, and then we went over to real-time overview and watched the visits start to spike. And it's funny because I've got a friend in Canada that saw my announcement, went to the site, and I texted her and said, "Hey, what are you doing on the blog?" It freaked her out because I knew there was, what are the chances that there's somebody else from that particular town in Ontario, so that real time can be a lot of fun because you can mess with people's mind like that. So, and then we did the same thing to my daughter's boyfriend, who is also in Canada on the other side of Ontario, and messaged him and said, "We see you." Okay, so talking about installing it in Google Analyticator. I put this screenshot up here because if you do a search for Google Analytics, at this point, and I'm sure it could change, but at this point, Google Analyticator is the second option in that search. So very easy to find. And this screenshot shows you the basic setup. You would put the UA code that Google gave you. You don't have to worry about the snippet that's there. You just take the UA code that it gave you, which is UA dash 8 digits dash one more digit. Throw it into the field, and then you can see here you've got the choice of a traditional or universal. Yes? Universal. The code itself is going to change. You would have to, unless Google simplifies the process for us somehow, I would have to say that they're probably going to expect you to go and get their new snippet and put it in there yourself. But the tracking, the UA code that will remain the same. Yep, the UA code will always remain the same. All right, so basically, there you don't see the save button at the bottom. You click save. You should be activated. Go to real time. Watch yourself visit the site. Yes?
Is that going to wrap in the data from the past analytics install, the traditional, or are we now starting up a brand new?
No, you should still have all the historical data, and there won't be anything lost there. So, all right, enough about installing it into WordPress. We want to talk about the data that is probably important. And like I said, I'm going to focus mainly on things that we can pull from it to deal with site performance.
What do you recommend the most?
I've got.
If you do both, which would you do?
I've gotten to the point where it's perfectly fine just to take the snippet, throw it into the code, and I'm okay with that. The only problem with that is you got to keep in mind that if you change the theme or you update the theme, you could lose that snippet and have to reinstall it. So if you're using the plugin, it's ease of mind. You don't have to worry about reactivating the analytics once you have changed the theme or something like that. Yes.
So I went to my plugin and I did a search using it's Google search.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows me nothing analytics. So that means it's not on, right? Like I searched my plugin, it's not there, we don't have it installed.
So you're saying you went and did a search in Google?
I searched installed plugins on my WordPress.
Oh.
And it doesn't show me that I have anything that's related to analytics in the plugin.
Mm-hmm.
So I can know that I don't have
That you don't have, you don't have anything happening there. If you've had somebody else messing with the site, then I would go to generally what I do automatically when I go to start evaluating a website for SEO is I'll do view source. You know what that means when I say view source? You right click on the home page on some of the white space on the home page and get view source, and then I do a find for UA dash. And if I don't find this snippet, that snippet of code that you saw, once I do that UA dash thing, you know, make sure that you only see one instance of UA dash, and then you know if the code's been installed. So, yeah, really simplifies things if you do use a plugin, and that's probably the reason why I would say just go with the plugin. You know, if you're comfortable with code, then by all means, but the plugin does a great job, and it gives you a few other options that you didn't see in that screenshot. So I don't know which one of you was first. So
The thing that I'm using has space in the settings for it to allow to add pages either ahead of the footer.
Uh-huh.
And there's a danger when I update the theme that essentially alters that. Should I still use a plugin versus the field that is provided with the theme?
I guess it would really just depend on, you know, if you've already set it up for universal or traditional, and the theme isn't supporting one or the other, then yeah, I would say go with a plugin that is equipped to handle that. But other than that, I don't think it would really matter. You know, if I've got a theme that allows me to put the UA code in there, then I just go with that. And you'll also find, and I didn't think to mention, a lot of the SEO plugins that are available now, the popular ones, now have the ability to put the UA, but it doesn't look like they support universal yet either. So namely WordPress, SEO for WordPress by Yoast, which is the really popular one, and then the one I use, All-in-One SEO. They both have a place where you can put the UA code and activate your analytics too. So you've got a lot of different options there. All right. Let's see. You had. Just go with universal, because you might have to switch it next month. It's hard to say when they're going to make everybody go to universal. And there's a hand over here. Yes.
Okay, so some teams support it. Some of the SEO teams support it. Can you go to real time and see if you're working at the right level? Find yourself and see if it's working on either through the SEO plugin or through the theme.
Yeah, that's basically what I recommend. Once you think it's activated on your site, drop in real time, visit the site, and make sure you didn't already visit the site in an open tab, you know, and think that it's gonna track the visit that already began, you know, before you installed the code. I've made that mistake. I'm like, hey, it's not finding me. Oh yeah, that's right, because I went to the website before I actually got the code in place. So you want to make sure to revisit in a new tab. Refresh, or leave that page, go to the next page. Any one of those things will work. All right. Yes. Forcing everybody. Yeah, that's the downside to universal, is that the other feature that they rolled out probably about the same time is only available in traditional, and yeah, I know. I can't believe they did it that way. It's like, what, you know, what are you thinking, Google? Because yes, universal does not work with the demographics portion. So, all right, let's jump into the data that matters. We're going to talk about bounce rate. We're going to talk about exit pages. We're going to talk about landing pages, and we'll talk a little bit about mobile users. Bounce rate. Anybody not know what bounce rate means? A few of you. I figured there'd be a few. Basically, bounce rate is Google tracks the percentage of people who visit your site, never click through to a second page, and leave. So if I go to your home page, or I go to one of your pages and I don't click around, then and I just leave the site, then that counts as a bounce, and that'll raise your bounce rate. You can see here the website that I used as an example has a terrible bounce rate. 60% of the people actually abandon the site before visiting the second page. We go on the assumption, you know, keep in mind Google Analytics does not time it quite right. So somebody could go to a page and stay there 20, 30 minutes and never, and they might be spending time on that page. We kind of assume when we see the bounce rate that somebody just hit the page and abandoned the site. And there was a lot of alarm back in the day about a high bounce rate because Google said something about, Google started paying attention to, they made some announcement and confused a lot of people and made it so that everybody thought, oh no, I've got a high bounce rate, Google's going to penalize me for it. What they're actually doing, they came out and they said, what we're going to look at is when somebody does a search, visits your site, and then immediately goes back to Google to either refine their search or click on one of the other listings. If I go to your site and click the back arrow, Google was paying attention to the fact that they didn't stay there more than just a second or two. And so that was the bounce that Google was actually using to affect how they were going to rank you, because if they saw in mass that people were doing a search, visiting your site, and then hitting the back arrow to go back to Google and start again, then they assumed, if they saw it in mass, they assumed that it must be a bad user experience. We're going to bring this down and not rank it as well. And so a lot of people were alarmed about bounce rate. A lot of, I get a lot of people asking me, what do I do about this terrible bounce rate? Well, I want to point out something. Nowadays, bounce rate is not necessarily an evil, okay? We may not necessarily need to be alarmed about a high bounce rate, and this is why. A lot has changed in coding, a lot has changed in the way websites are structured and things like that. Perfect example of that is my own website. You will see here that, okay, based on this screenshot, it is possible that somebody could convert and also bounce. Because on my website, there's a Get Started button. And if they click that Get Started button, it gives them a pop-up that lets them fill out a form to request information from me. They hit Submit. It puts a little thank you message across the bottom. It never takes them off of the page that they're on, never takes them into a second page. So they could fill out the form and convert. I consider this my conversion. If somebody contacts me, they could convert and still bounce. Coding nowadays is set up in such a way, this is done with Ajax. So this is basically making it so that I could end up with a higher bounce rate simply because I didn't make somebody go to a Contact Us page, fill out the form, and then get a thank you message that's on another URL after they've filled out the form. And another thing that we got to keep in mind is that a lot of people, you see in mine, the phone number stuck right up in the header. That could be a conversion. I go to your page, I got your phone number, that's really all I wanted. I get on the phone and call you. So a bounce rate is not necessarily an evil thing, especially nowadays with modern coding. Yes?
When we talk about bounce rate, we're also, there's multiple entry points, right? You're just giving me an example of a homepage, but if I throw out a link on Twitter that says read my latest blog,
right.
You go there, you read the blog, and say, well, that's great. And you have this similar scenario where it counts as a bounce and you don't explore the site.
Mm-hmm.
You're still getting the information.
Exactly. And this bounce rate that I said was terrible, this is on a website that I own. It was just a hobby. It's comic1liners.com. If somebody does a search for a comic quote from let's say, George Carlin, once they get that quote, they don't have a whole lot of reason to explore my site and dig around for more quotes. They got the quote they're looking for. So I'm not too alarmed about a 60% bounce rate. And like I said, it's a hobby site, so what do I care? So 60%, pretty typical for that type of site. It's a WordPress website that just has a graphic and cute little quote from famous comedians. So, before I get into the exit pages, I want to talk a little bit more about this. What can you do to bring down your bounce rate? Let's say it is an issue. Let's say it is too high, and you got to keep in mind different sites are going to perform differently. People that have an e-commerce site, might see a 60 to 80% bounce rate. For some reason, e-commerce is considerably higher than a lot of other sites. So it really kind of depends on what your site is trying to accomplish. If people are go into an e-commerce site, they see the product they want, and they leave, you're going to end up with a much higher bounce rate than an information site that is very good at bringing you in and engaging you. I've seen e-commerce sites 60 to 80%. I've seen other websites that are amazing because they're like 5% bounce rate. Well, it's because the site has a good example would be something like a mortgage site that has a mortgage calculator and different tools that people can use to explore the option of getting a mortgage. They might have a much lower bounce rate simply because that calculator is going to draw people in. I want to see what my monthly payment's going to be like or whatever. So if you've got a website that has a lot of different gadgets and a lot of different tools that could draw people in, that's going to naturally lower the bounce rate. Talking about things that we could do to lower the bounce rate, for heaven's sake, please, when you link to another website or you link to your own social media, make it open up in a new tab. That's a good user experience. It's going to lower your bounce rate because they still stay on your website. And nothing more frustrating than me clicking on a Facebook icon and it takes me off their site to the Facebook page. I'm like, what I need is on the site. I really would have liked to have stayed on the site. And I think in most cases we'd want to keep them on the site as opposed to drawing them to the Facebook page once they're already on the website. Twitter, same thing. You might as well not draw them away from your call to action and what you've got on your page. So by all means, make sure it's open. Anytime you're linking to another .com or you're linking to a PDF on your own, make sure it's opened up in a new tab. Yes, you had a question?
So I'm an illustrator, and I'm thinking about having a third-party printer to print my work that used to go by. So it would redirect. Would I have a really high bounce rate then? Because if they click on the link to purchase something, it's actually going to go to like a print on demand.
That could affect your, it sounds like it could affect your, it sounds like it could affect your bounce rate if it's taken them to a different .com to finish the process. So yeah, absolutely. Another thing that I would say could lower the bounce rate, you see you could take the Amazon thing as an example. Every time you go to a product, it also says people who bought this also like this. You can do the same thing with your blog. You can do the same thing if your WordPress site is e-commerce enabled, and you can do the related products thing or the related articles thing. That can have a very positive effect on your bounce rate if you give them something to do after they're done with whatever it is that they did on that page. If they read your article, here's some other articles that are related. So that's another great way of lowering that bounce rate. All right, now let's talk real quick about exit pages. The reason why I feel this is important is because you can see, granted, most people are going to see this really high number for their home page. It's where people exit, whatever, no big deal. But if I see one that's alarmingly high, a high second, then it might be worthwhile to take a look. This is probably a bad example of a screenshot because you've got page 2, page 3. It's all these archive pages on the blog. Number 2, considerably higher. I'd want to pay attention. I'd want to compare that to how many times that page has been visited to see. And it's got percentages here, so I can see that the percentage isn't all that outrageous. So I shouldn't be alarmed. It's just been a nice traffic magnet, that particular page. But if I see that one has had a really high percentage of exits, I might want to explore that. I had a particular client that one page was a very comfortable second place under the home page, and when I got to looking, I realized that it didn't have the same call to action that the other pages had. All I really need, I need to make sure that big red button that drew them to an application page, which was the whole purpose of getting to the site, make sure that button I rearranged the page, put that button prominently in the page, and watch that lower as an exit page. Any questions about exit pages? Exit page simply means this is the page, last thing they saw before they abandoned your site. All right. And then we talk about landing pages. Now keep in mind there's two different things you can analyze when it comes to landing pages. You might want to pay attention to how these pages are serving to draw search, which is a big thing for a lot of people. Or you could look at the overall, and the screenshot here is looking at the overall numbers for the landing pages. And so you can see, we saw that that page was serving pretty big as an exit page. It's also serving real big as a landing page. So I probably don't need to be alarmed about the high exit on that one. Any questions about that, landing pages? All right. The reason I bring up mobile users, I'd want to draw attention to the bounce rate and the new visits. If I see that the new visits the percentage of new visits are extremely high for one particular mobile device, and the bounce rate is also extremely high for that particular mobile device, I might want to get access to that mobile device and see if the page is broken. I might want to see if there's something wrong with the way the site is rendered in that particular tablet or mobile device. And I want to make sure I allow enough time for questions. We're going to quarter till, correct? So we got 10 minutes. All right, real quick, talk about setting up a goal. I think this is really the thing that makes Google Analytics what it is the ability to set a goal. And real simple, not a whole lot to it. You would go to the admin area, click goals, and you could set it up for things like destination URL. So if somebody is filling out a contact form that takes them to a thank you message, that thank you message could be a conversion. It could be a goal. The only way they're going to see that presumably the only way they're going to see that thank you page is if they filled out the form and landed on that page. So that could be the destination URL that triggers that goal. Or you've got duration. If somebody's hanging on your site and clicking around for more than 5 minutes or more than 3 minutes, you could set a goal to track that and see how many people are actually engaged and involved in the site. And then page views, you could set it up so that you could make it so that if somebody views more than 3 pages, 5 pages, then you know that these are the parties that are probably a little bit more interested than the ones that bounced. And then the events, you can set up things called events where if somebody downloads your PDF or somebody clicks out of your site, you can set it up as an event, and you can then turn that event into a goal. I'm not going to get into obviously don't have the time to get into a whole lot of how-tos on this, but any questions about goals before I move on? Yes. For me, I think it's really more about when the conversion has occurred, digging in and finding out more about that individual. I think more so, like how did they find my site? Were they even in a region that could do business with me? Things like that. So it's really about going to the goal, going and seeing how many people converted on this particular goal, and then finding out were they worthwhile, were they coming from the right sources, or what drew them in, so like if it'll help you see if some of your social media is wasting your time, same thing with bounce rate. You've got the ability to check bounce rate on almost every metric that analytics makes available, so I can go and see how many people bounce when they visit from Facebook as opposed to somebody that visits from Twitter. And I can see if my social media, if one of these social media platforms is really not really serving me well. So those types of things are I don't know if that answered your question, but that's the kind of thing I'm looking for a goal. You're going to have your main goals that, like an e-commerce site, you finish the checkout, then it triggers a goal. Thank you message, whatever. If somebody signs up for your newsletter, I think if you sign up for a newsletter, unless it's set up in such a way, you might actually have to put some code into the button to make that convert as a goal. So it's a little bit more complicated to set up than what we have here. It requires a little bit of JavaScript coding. So, yes?
So what's the difference between using a goal that got saved back to date and just looking at the page as is every time they set the date?
Not really. There's really not much difference other than the fact that that you're able to dissect a little bit better, I guess, from that standpoint. If I've got the goal, then I can if I go to the area where it says how many times has the page been visited, I might not be able to pull other metrics into the equation to see the big picture. Whereas if it's a goal, I can go to the goals and explore it the same way I would explore the data as a whole. And then we talk about advanced segments. I'll show you real quick here. I like advanced segments. You see it says all visits. Well, you could change that to just take a look at new users. Click that and you could actually compare all visits to new users. So the segments really can come in handy. And you'll see here, I've obviously created a lot of custom segments because you'll see not Detroit. And then there was another one, I think I might have run off the screenshot, that was Detroit only. I got Michigan only. So I've set up custom advanced segments to be able to dissect the data different. So I could look, so feasibly, I could take a look to see if my website is really focused on Michigan folks, because that's where I'm from. Then I could segment it out and take a look at how many of the visits are actually just coming from Michigan. Though not Detroit was set up so that it gave me everybody in Michigan except for the Metro Detroit area. So I could see if I was reaching the rest of the state. And you'll notice a lot of these, the one weird thing about it is these advanced segments actually cross all my different accounts. So, and I don't know why Google does that, but this is for MichiganMarketer.com and this is for a client, so they lump them all together, and I don't quite know why they do that, but you can still get a lot of data from that, be able to segment it out a little bit differently. Yes?
Is it terribly cumbersome to set those customized segments up? I'm seeing one of those that exclude Holly. I'm assuming Holly is somebody who might hit your site frequently.
Actually, yeah. In that particular case, it was a branded search. I was doing client work for a nursing home or a assisted living facility called Villas of Hollybrook, and so Holly seemed to be the one word that if somebody used that, then it was considered a branded search. So that's why I excluded Holly. It wasn't a person. Yeah. No, it's pretty easy. As a matter of fact, I think I got it in the next screenshot. You hit the create new segment, and on the next screenshot, it'll take you to a page where you can click around and you can dig right into different traffic sources, geographical locations, things like that. So it's really pretty simple. And I actually have done really complex custom segments back in the day, to where I could actually evaluate how many people search with one keyword, how many search with two keywords, how many search with three keywords, or four or more, and look at all those numbers together. So it's really pretty awesome what it's got the capability of doing. All right, and I'm out of time, so we didn't get to talk about annotations. Annotations is just simply notes that I get to leave myself so I could see how certain things I did affected. I know on such and such date I made this change, because I can sit there and make personal notes in there. You can see here that I've set up a few so that you can see the little dots on my timeline that say, or the little deals there. So that's basically what annotations is. It's a way of me leaving myself personal notes about changes I've made and see how it affected how Google treated those changes. All right, got a couple minutes. I know people have asked questions throughout, so. Uh-huh. There's a lot of tutorials online. I haven't seen a lot in way of books available. I'm actually in the process of putting a little mini PDF together myself that kind of covers a lot of this stuff, but it's not available yet, and I haven't seen any that really, I'm sure they're out there, but. Good question. Actually, there is Google, and I go to Google itself. Yeah, I go to Google themselves. They've got a whole big training on how to pull data. So I'd say that's probably where I would go before I go to third parties to try to get the information. But I have gone through like a little email. I've signed up for email blasts that that take me through tutorials. But I don't recall. That's been years ago. So yes.
Maybe a little bit of an odd question. So, a company that I work for is 89north.com.
Uh-huh.
And about a year and a half ago, we would get 30, 40 hits over the web page a day. And for what we did, that was perfectly fine. A year and a half ago, it jumped about 300 hits a day. And after enough little searching, I found out there's one site that's open called www.89.com. And our bounce rate's only went through the roof, and it
Yeah, yeah. I don't know that there's a way to remove. I mean, you can sit there and pick out IP addresses, and most hosting packages will allow you to pick out IP addresses to block. I've had to do that for bandwidth issues. Yeah, well, yeah, it's porn. Yeah, I don't know that there's really a lot that could be done there. It's just the nature of the beast. So, all right. Time has run out. I live in Southfield. My office is actually in downtown Detroit, right just a block away from Ford Field. Pretty awesome location. I'm pretty happy about it. So, and Greektown's on the other side of me, the Greektown Casino. So, pretty cool place to be, right in the heart of the matter. But I live in Southfield, right on the Southfield Franklin city limits, and I own a coffee shop in Franklin as well. So, yes. Rochester, really? Okay. Awesome.
Born and raised in Warren.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
So lived in up to Utica, Shelby area.
I met somebody else earlier that said he lived in Farmington Hills for a while, so pretty awesome.
Yeah.
You're in Utica right now? You said you live in Utica right now?
I live down here. From there. Oh, really? I lived there 24 days later. Before I moved down here. So I drove 14.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Everybody get a lot out of it?
Yeah.
Good. That's what's important. Thanks so much.